Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Satnam B. Today we're going to look at some techniques to improve your InDesign workflow. These are tips and tricks I use daily to help me work efficiently while designing. Let's begin. Tip number 1. Using Photoshop layers directly in InDesign. InDesign can support a variety of file types, including image files, video files, and even some complicated CSVs or even some code markup files. Using Photoshop PSDs directly in InDesign is a commonly overlooked technique I see many designers doing. The common workflow is to use PNGs or JPEGs from Illustrator or Photoshop and then add them directly into the InDesign file. This is perfectly fine for many cases. However, if you have to amend the file, so for instance changing some text, changing color, or even just removing some bits, you have to re-export the whole image and then relink it inside InDesign. InDesign supports PSD file types, meaning you can insert a PSD straight from Photoshop into your InDesign working document. One advantage is the PSDs will now automatically update when a change is made inside Photoshop. This will save you time having to re-export JPEGs or PNGs and having to relink them all. This can be really useful, especially if you're dealing with clients that like to amend things, or if you have to adjust things like turning off shadows or removing layers. The main advantage I like about working with PSDs directly in InDesign is the ability to turn on and off layers directly inside InDesign. This is quite a commonly overlooked part as it's not really advertised that well. If you select a PSD inside InDesign and click Object Layer Options, you will see a new dialog box appear. This box allows you to toggle off different layers as you would see in Photoshop. In this PSD example, we have 3 layers. We can turn off the gradient map and the hide this layer, and you'll see things start to happen. The advantage of this is it means you don't have to actually go directly into Photoshop, and you can make any additional changes all inside InDesign. You can go one step further by using the Update Links option. Update Links gives you the ability to choose which visibility settings you want to continue using. Keep Layer Visibility Overrides chooses the selection that you have set up in InDesign, so whether you've turned off certain layers, while Keep Photoshop's Layer Visibility mimics what's in the original PSD file. Either options work, it all depends on your workflow and what you're trying to achieve. I find that I sometimes mix different settings. To me, it's more about time rather than whether it's the correct route. Sometimes it's easier to just edit stuff inside InDesign as it is to open up Photoshop, especially if you're on an underpowered machine. There's no real right or wrong answer, and if the options are available, just use what you have at your disposal. When you first add a PSD directly into InDesign, you actually can turn off layers instantly. You just have to change the way you import the PSD. If you select the PSD and then click Show Import Options, you can now toggle on and off different layers as you see fit. So those are 2 different routes to add PSDs and to amend the layers. Tip number 2 is using the Effects panel to fill vector shapes and fill images with a solid color. The Effects panel, or also known as the FX panel, is a very powerful tool within InDesign that can be leveraged to create all sorts of types of aesthetic treatments and looks. In this tip, we're going to adjust a few settings to help us recolor an image all inside InDesign. First, let's select an image and go to the FX panel and select Inner Shadow. We'll then need to turn on preview so we can actually see the changes happening in real time. We can then change the opacity to 100% and change the blending mode back to normal. It's defaulted to multiply. The reason is most times this effect is used for an actual shadow as opposed to the way we're going to use it. Now we need to select the color that we're going to use. Let's go with this magenta, for instance. We can now adjust the scale of the size and the choke. Size is literally how large the shadow is going to be casted, and the choke is the sort of feathering effect that you'll see on an edge. So the higher the choke, the more sharp it is, the lower the value, the more gradual it is. Each asset will have its own variation due to size or complexity, so the choke and size numbers that you're going to insert will be different. There's no real one size fits all option, unless you choose like 1,000 for each. Once you're happy, hit OK. You can now see we've completely recolored this image, all using this one panel. It's quite a quick and easy approach, and it does exactly what we needed it to do. This will work on images, transparent images, and even like icons and SVGs. It's more about finding when best to use it as opposed to just throwing in unnecessarily. It's always best to alter the assets with inside Illustrator or Photoshop where possible. However, this is a quick and easy method to achieve a quick recolor all inside InDesign if you don't have the other tools available. One thing to caveat is some printers might complain when too many effects are used, as it can be quite heavy on their machines. So it's always best to check with your printer when using effects like these. If it's an on-screen presentation or a document, go wild. You can use as many as you need, as long as your machine can cope. and it will export fine. Tip number 3, aligning and distributing. Aligning and distributing is probably the most used feature inside my workflow outside of drawing text boxes and boxes. Everything needs to be aligned in some form or another, whether that's to a grid, a selection, or even the page itself. To find the Align panel, go to Window, Object and Layout, and Align. For demo purposes, I'm going to use these 8-bit hearts. On the panel, we can see a few options. We can align shapes horizontally and vertically to different points, like left, right, top, and bottom, while the most common being the center points of each. In the panel, you can also see distribution. Distributing is a way of creating more of a conformed layout. So for instance, if we've got these hearts, we can select them all and we can distribute horizontally and we can create even gaps between them. You can do this horizontally and vertically at different points as well. If you've ever had to work on a logo wall or some sort of thing with multiple objects of different sizes, this is such a lifesaver. In the panel, you might notice a few other settings to mess about with. The most common is the Align To menu. This gives you a bunch of options on how you want your shapes to be aligned and where to. So whether that's to their own selection, whether that's to the page, the margin, or even to a key object. If you select selection, it will create an artificial bounding box around your objects, and that will be the frame that will be used to align things to. So whether you click on horizontal, it will align everything to that middle point. Align to pages and align to margins do exactly what you expect. They align to their pages and margins respectively. If you work in print or have facing pages, you can also distribute and align to the entire spread. My favorite setting is the align to key objects. Many designers seem to overlook this as it's not really explained that well, but it's super useful. Basically, you click on an object, you choose it as your hero, and then the rest of the selection is driven by that hero. Let me showcase how it works. So we're going to select the hearts. We're going to then change our settings to align to key object. You'll see a thick blue border appear around one of the hearts. This is your hero, but we can now click on any other shape in the selection and that will become the hero. You can now use the alignment panel as normal and it will be based around the hero object. This can be very useful when you're trying to manipulate a layout that already exists. Let's say we need to add text to a box that already exists. We could add the text as we would normally do. We could then select the both text box and the text. We could then make the text box a hero and align centrally and vertically our new text layer into that point. This is a way easier approach than trying to do this manually. The last thing to look into is the space settings. These can be quite useful when trying to deal with objects that have different sizes or different shapes. All you need to do is make a selection of the objects and insert the space distance you want to use. This may take a few tries to get right. You may have to adjust the unit of space a few times before you get it right. I would highly recommend all designers getting familiar with using the Align panel and especially using key objects as they're a massive time saver. The settings are also available inside Illustrator and I think Photoshop. Tip number 4 is probably a little bit basic, but it's super useful and can get overlooked. It's about saving your files. If you have used InDesign, you've probably known it can crash and break fairly frequently, depending on what you're using inside the file and also the kind of machine you use. Lower powered machines can sometimes have issues. And also if the document you're working on is quite large, it can break or lock you out. A common rule of thumb is to save your document pretty much every few minutes. As soon as you do a big change, save and incrementally save. So save a version 1, 2, 3, 4 as you go. Saving frequently in different ways will allow you to ensure you don't lose files. Losing hours of work is heartbreaking and always seems to happen when you have a deadline looming or you have to complete a task in an unrealistic time frame. People tend to forego saving when they're locked in just to achieve their deadline. So it's always like a risky play. I'm going to share a few ways to save your work and some reasons for each, as they're quite different. Firstly, we have the standard save and save as options, which allow you to save your InDesign file into your desired location as you would in any other software. Save as copy creates a clone of your current file. This allows you to save a version in a new location with a new name while keeping your current document open. The most important benefit is it purges any excess data from the file. The way InDesign works is it keeps a lot of the metadata of any changes or any assets that have been added and keeps them in a way that's kind of like bloat and it just balloons the file size. When you use save as a copy, it reduces your file size and creates like almost a brand new version of the document without having to go through the headache of literally copying and pasting all your assets to a new document. Every now and again, when you're working on quite large documents, it's always good to save as a copy and start working from that document just to keep your file sizes low and also to ensure that your files have like save points to go back to if anything breaks. So let's just say you was working on a document and you were meant to save and it crashes and you can't recover the file through your regular files. InDesign actually has an autosave feature which can recover documents as a last resort failsafe. I wouldn't personally rely on this too much as it has burnt me in the past, but you can locate the recovery files. All you need to do is just go to Edit Preferences and File Handling, and you'll see the recovery location present. If you work on Windows, this will usually be inside your C drive under the Program Settings, and in Macs, it'll be in an equivalent folder. You can also set a custom location if you require. So just say if you're working on a network, it can be good to have these saved in a way that you can recover them if needed. I would recommend turning on autosave as a standard for all users. And I would also recommend saving the document as soon as you start working on it so that there's something to go back to. The autosave only kicks in once there's a file location to even reference. The final save function isn't exactly a save function at all. It's more about an export function. It's known as packaging your file. Packaging a file is a process that collates all of the assets used inside your InDesign document, like images and fonts, and places them inside a new InDesign file, all completely linked in a desired location. I package files in a few different stages of a project. This could be when I need to send a colleague an editable version of the document and they don't share the same network as me, sending the document to the client for proof, or lastly, when I need to package up the document to send to the printer so they have all the relevant files and links if they need to edit anything on their side. Lastly, I package up the file at the end of the project once it's completed as a point of archiving. This is a really good practice, so I know that I have a final asset that's completely self-contained with all the links and all the fonts so that I can revert back to them if I ever need to open this document in the future. When you don't package, things can break, things can get deleted, and it can just lead to a lot of red errors on your pre-flight panel. Tip number 5, using hidden figures. This is a simple tip for proofing work. Use show hidden figures to see characters that aren't visible. This is a great way to locate double spaces, soft returns, and other typographic anomalies that you can't normally see. To see them, go to Type, Show Hidden Characters. It will now show a variety of blue characters where invisible characters once were. These are non-printable elements, so you don't have to worry about if this document is saved and then printed. They will be hidden. You can use the shortcut Ctrl-Alt-I to toggle them on and off to help proof your InDesign doc. Hopefully you've learned something in this video. I tried to showcase a variety of tips and tricks that I found useful in my own personal workflow that helped me to work more efficiently. My approach to learning a software is to learn how to make the software actually work for you. Learning the stuff that you need to use on a daily basis and then working out how to improve your workflow is the best way to evolve. Build on how and why things work the way they do. That way you can deepen your understanding and then elevate your overall skill set. Once you remove the barrier of needing to search how things work, you can create as you see. Hopefully by working more efficiently, you can actually spend less time on the screen working and more time enjoying your life. If you found this video useful, please like, comment and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. I'm Satnon B, signing out.